Hi, everybody. My name's Sarah McGregor. I am the Executive Director for NZIPP, and we are really happy to have you all here tonight and looking forward to hearing a bit more from Richard Wood. Just before we get started, can you please make sure that your microphones are muted, just so that we don't get any interruptions as we're going? If you've got any questions, post them in the chat, and we'll try and keep on top of the chat. And then at the end, we might have some time for some questions for Richard. So yeah, let's get going. So thank you for coming, Richard, and joining us tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about your photography business to start with?
Yeah, hi everyone. Look, my photography business, what is it? I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. I find if I stick to one thing, it becomes very quickly like doing the dishes. So I definitely dabble in a lot of genres. I'm a commercial photographer. That's probably one of my main gigs. I'll do a handful of weddings over the summers. When I feel like it, I might do a portrait campaign, or yeah, I'm not currently in a studio at the moment, unfortunately, but when I am, I do a lot more of that. And of course, a big part of my career is education as well. So that's kind of how I operate. But yeah, commercial work would be the major for me.
And how long have you been a photographer?
Depends when you click start, I guess. Uh, I found an interest in it at about the age of probably 19. Um, And that was because my girlfriend at the time, who was English, was very much into it, and I didn't really share any interest in it whatsoever. But she dragged me along to the International Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition in London, and I ended up staying there for quite a number of hours and just fell in love with it. So quick, smartly, when I got home, I bought a 35mm camera for $150, and finished my business degree and enrolled myself into a Bachelor of Design at Massey, where I studied graphic design and photography as majors there. So, yeah, it was that's when I started studying, and then I think it was about after that I because I did graphic design behind me, I started working for advertising agencies, and naturally from there, those agencies would often hire me as their in-house photographer. So I quickly built up a portfolio of commercial work, and then in 2009, after my first daughter was born, during a recession actually, I opened a studio in Napier, and yeah, I guess that's when I started on my own. Uh,
So
yeah,
you've been entering the awards for quite a while.
I think
Um,
2000, it was either 2009 or 2010 I had to go. Someone convinced me I should try, but yeah.
and were you entering portraits, or was that wedding or commercial work back then?
Um, a little bit of commercial and a bit of me playing around doing the stuff I love.
Yeah,
Experimenting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you've won New Zealand Professional Photographer of the Year in 2024, but you've also won it a few times prior to that as well.
Yeah, I five times. The first time I won it was 2011, which was a bit of a shock to the system. I was reasonably new in the NZIPP. Yeah, and then 14, 17, and 21. So yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
So you've had lots of award experience, and you are a Grandmaster of Photography with 4 bars from
Three, three,
NZIPP, three
three,
bars.
three bars. Yeah.
So you've pretty much gone through the cycle 4 times. So it's quite a big commitment to entering the awards. And like with the NZIPP awards, you've entered other international awards as well.
Yeah, I got the grand award at a creative grand award at the Icon Awards this year in Las Vegas. Before that, it was WPPI. I've won a grand award with WPPI as well. Overall winner Asia Pacific twice. And yeah, first place in WPE. and a couple of medals at Photographic World Cup. So yeah, it's I don't know if it's an addiction, but I just find the value in entering awards pretty solid. I find it keeps me constantly thinking about what I'm doing and trying to always up level and upskill or find that extra special shot with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
When you're entering the awards all the time, you've constantly got that little fire in the back of your mind. So it helps. It makes you just push an extra step further every time you shoot, I feel.
Um, so with the NZIPP awards, we judge the images live. I'm not too sure about all the other awards that are available, but that's sort of quite a special thing that we have in New Zealand. And do you find that that feedback that you get from those awards is really helpful
Oh,
to
for
your
sure. I
growth?
mean, yeah, look, WPPI did have a panel and they would do it live, but that's stopped happening now. And they only critique the top 10. You can get feedback, but it's more personal unless you want to dive into the recorded banks. But the value of the NZIPP awards is definitely, when you're involved, you're involved. You're there for 3 days, and just watching not only your own stuff get critiqued, but constantly watching other people's getting critiqued as well is just reinforces, and it's just such a almost exponential learning curve. It's yeah, it is the most valuable education tool there is, I think.
Yeah.
And we have the best system, so yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's good to hear. So this year, you most of your entries were across two specific categories. So we're going to bring up some of those entries now, and we're going to go through each one and talk about the creative process behind the image. You know, how you sort of shot it, what gear you kind of used. You've got a few props and stuff to show us as we go along. So I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to start with this image. So, which category was this one entered in?
That was illustrative. I don't
And
think it could have gone anywhere else, to be honest.
and it's not the first alien I've seen from you.
Yeah.
Can you first of all talk about the creative process for this one?
Look, a lot of people here will know of the earlier Alien series I did over the years. Um, and that was a different character, and that kind of came to a finish. I have been tempted to reignite it, but I haven't. And this was just, I still had so the head piece, the actual head and the neck of that is actually sort of like a foam model that I have. Um, and I was just looking at it one day and I thought, hey, why don't you just change it up? And I just brainstormed over. Normally I'm brainstorming over a number of days or weeks, just waiting for something to come. But I've got it here. I spray painted it black and painted its eyes in gold. I don't know if you can flick through to what I'm
Yeah,
holding here.
can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the head, and he got a new paint job, and I found that he looked quite a bit like, well, he reminded me of Anubis, the Egyptian god. So that kind of spun off that story. And if you look closely at that image, if you ever see it up large, he's sort of covered in hieroglyphics and sort of electronic panels. And I just got really creative with her. Well, it's actually a her, this one. The other ones have always been a him. This one's a her. So the body on that's a female's. My makeup artist just painted her all up. Gold hands in the black body. The skull is, I've got a lot of these, but it was just a quick spray paint with some gold paint. And I guess that was the spacecraft, a very overpriced model I bought online, and I painted that as well. And there's a moon there, which is actually a night light. Well, I don't know if you, well, originally it's a moon. It's my daughter's night light, so I photographed that with different angles with light, and just kind of played. And there isn't necessarily a narrative as such that one must find in it. I'm more about just getting people to think, and putting some clues in there. I don't like it when people say, "Oh, I don't get it." Um, if I can create something and people quickly get it or understand it, I feel like it's not as strong. If you imagine yourself in a gallery and you see a piece of work that's potentially pretty and nice to look at, if you very quickly understand it, often you'll move on to the next. So I like creating a piece that will kind of hold people for a while, and they'll kind of work with it and try and understand it. And not always does it necessarily make 100% sense, but yeah. And that was lit with, I was playing with new lights. So she's been lit with, I got 4 of them, these Nanlite Parvo tubes. I've actually got one on me now, but I've got 2 little short ones, and I've got a couple of 4-foot ones, but they just, I've actually found them really valuable. It's like a little lightsaber, and you can change the colors and the effects that these create. But basically, that model's been backlit just to give those little slithers of gold rim light down the sides of the body and the head. But yeah.
So when you use that light, do you just, for this particular shot, did you use a color, or is this just on the?
Yeah, so you can basically any color in the rainbow, you can adjust these lights to show. And the tall ones I've got on stands, and the other ones are just sort of more handheld work. But so they were just sitting behind that alien's head on the table in the studio. And for the body, I just got my makeup artist and assistant to, or actually one of the other models, to just hold them behind her. So yeah.
And what can you tell us about the gear that you're shooting with? Like something like this, what, lens would you shoot with? What camera do you use?
I'm For this one, I was on the Canon R5. I've now just got the Canon R5 Mark II, which is absolutely incredible. And look, normally my go-to lens for portraits is an 85 1.2. But for this, I used a 24 to 70.
Cool.
But yeah.
Okay, shall we move on to something from the portrait category?
Position.
This photo here.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
sorry, I've flipped. Do you want to tell us a bit about this one?
yeah, sure. So this got it was a silver. The last one was gold distinction, actually, I think. So this one here they're actually friends of mine, but also I do a bit of work for them. They own a small wine business called Seorsa, and extremely creative family. You can tell, the house it's all painted black. They're quite quirky anyway. The wine bottles, I helped design the labels, and basically on the front of those bottles, when you see them on the shelf in the shop, there's just the little logo at the bottom and there's nothing written on them. And the idea we kind of created behind that was so that people look at it and go, what on earth is that? And they pick it up in their hands and turn it around and have to read the back. And naturally, once a bottle of wine's in your hand, you're far more likely to buy it. So yeah, they're just really creative people, really open to out the box suggestions and that sort of stuff. And this is part of a series that I'm taking of creative people in their spaces. So it's just them in their living room, but the middle child, the middle child, the daughter, is an absolute wild child. And if you can see in the dark there, there's the teenage son who's playing on his guitar, sitting in the dark, like many of these teenagers do. So I found that quite fitting, and I didn't want to light him because I quite like the little story that told. And then there's the younger sister headbanging in the background, and that started while I was photographing these two, and I thought keep that going, and we'll just incorporate it into the scene because it portrays this family really, really well. So it's just something a little bit different and interesting, I guess.
And so this category allows very minimal work
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the photo. So
yeah.
with is this natural light, or did you take lights in to photograph it?
The light landing on the couple in the foreground has been lit with a diffused, not a shoot through umbrella, but a an umbrella you bounce off the back of, but with a diffuser over the front of it. And I think it's about 1.8 meters, so it's quite large.
Hmm. And lens, do you remember what you might have shot this
This
with?
would have been a 16 to 35. So
Cool.
nice and wide, but probably a little bit too wide, but I didn't have much room behind me.
Yeah.
You can see there's a bit of stretching going down on the bottom left corner, especially. But hey, it's a in camera doco style shot or editorial style shot. So I thought, well, surely they can be a bit forgiving with that. But yeah.
Okay, let's flick to this one here. Can you tell us a bit about this image?
Yeah, sure. So this one here, there wasn't a lot of discussion about actually. It received a silver distinction. I'd hoped it to go higher, but I knew it was going to be a tall order for people to be able to read much from it. Um, Basically, it's a scene that's about opposites or the yin yang, I guess. So you can see in the background this man dressed almost, like a geisha as a woman at night, but in the background, her armor is sitting there up against the wall, so almost poses as two identities, and obviously the sword and the naginata leaning against the wall. And in that same motion, you can see the cat, his pet cat, sitting on the left, and it's looking up. But if you follow that gaze from the other side of the subject, there's actually a print of a fierce tiger on the wall. So there's that juxtaposition as well. There's a vase of flowers off on our camera right, and then on camera left, there's a vase of arrows. There's fish waiting to be, or being prepared for consumption up on the top left. Yet she's feeding a goldfish in a bowl and nurturing one. So it was kind of all about showing those opposites and having a play with that. And the kimono I had managed to get access to, I think it's from the Mikado, was this brilliant orange color. And I thought, let's just play with that and carry it through the whole scene, tie it all together.
So, what category was this one in?
This was an illustrative.
Okay, so all the fish in the background, was that shot like that, or did you do that in the studio separate?
I actually shot this one in Michelle Fay's studio
Hmm.
one evening, and what is not in the scene. So the whole tabletop scene was there. The fish had been added. The armor was there at the time. The wall print I photographed separately, and the cat, not the most cooperative of species. So he was photographed afterwards as well. And then just sort of that's all been dropped together.
So, can you tell us about the lighting and your
Sure.
camera choice for this?
Look, the camera would have been the R5, Canon R5. The would have been the 24 to 70 that day, and the lighting is again actually for this one is just a really big soft diffused umbrella. And there would have been another one behind me just so I could work those darker areas. They're like a fill light, so I'm working the shadows with one light and the highlights with the other. So yeah, there would have been two going on there, both diffused umbrellas. So basically, I'd set up the scene, and I would use the light that's coming in from behind me just to gently fill the scene, so that I feel like I've got just enough detail in this dark tabletop sort of scene. And once I've got those shadows down packed, or feeling pretty confident about them, that there's the right amount of information there, then I apply my key light, which is off to camera right, which is another big diffused umbrella, but obviously much closer.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to go to this image. If you can tell us about the, category and the process behind this one.
This was creative portrait, I believe. Um, it's kind of just become a tradition in this household that each daughter has to have a weird photo. It could be read in so many different ways. I remember Craig judging this, and he saw it as, this child that looks very innocent, but inside is a almost like a mythical monster that's consuming these human beings. And this is like, the boneyard quarter of the house. It's just me playing with innocence, and I guess it's a just one big memento mori. Um, that's my 2-year-old, and we just had to hide things under the bones for her to find. Yeah, it took a lot of patience to get the shot. But,
Hmm.
and the bones, look, I've for a long time I've had a medical skeleton here at home. I've got quite a number of different skulls and that I've collected for shoots. There's another one down here. Yeah, and I have a whole lot of bones that were also given to me that were being thrown out at the hospital. They were obviously parts of medical models and that sort of stuff, and they were just getting rid of them one day. And I knew the right person, and they called me and said, "Come up and pick up some boxes." But a lot of those elements have been used more than once in that same composite. Yeah. And the lighting for this, I believe, was a 1.2 softbox, octabox, and no fill light for this one. It's too cramped.
So just one light.
Yeah.
Can I just for a minute flick back to the geisha one that we were talking
Mm.
about before? I keep doing that, sorry. Rebecca McMillan asked, is it two very large diffused umbrellas or a smaller one for the shadows that you used?
No. So 2 umbrellas the same size. I'm quite often using 2, and if I'm not using, for that fill, I want something that's really, really soft, and all it's going to do is just raise the values of those dark areas, just so that the scene's just lit. So that I use a really, really big softbox, either to my side, not softbox, diffused umbrella, either to my side or behind me. So basically, when I'm turning that up and down, what that's doing, and when I turn it up and down in strength, is it's bringing out more or less details in those shadows. And then the other umbrella it's the same size, but this one is much closer. So it's that ratio of, when you bring light closer to your subject, um, you very, very quickly develop more contrast, but also strengthen that light. And
Hmm.
when you bring it closer in perspective, it's actually bigger too, so your light gets soft. So yeah, it's a balancing act, but it sounds more difficult than it is.
Thank you. Sorry, Rebecca, I missed that before. Um, can we look at this image here? Which I think was in the portrait category, so minimal editing.
Yeah. So
Yep.
this is an artist. This is another one of the ones I've started. I've started this creators in their spaces sort of concept, and this was another artist I photographed, or a creative, and her name's Venus, and she's wild as, originally from Hawke's Bay, travels back from Hawke's Bay to Wellington quite a bit, but she's done a lot of the commission graffiti about the place, and she she's everywhere in bare feet, and uh, very very outside of the box woman, but she's got these really light colored, almost tan brown eyes, which are quite striking. And her hair is quite a reddishy blonde sort of color, and it's all over the place. And it was a really windy day here out in front of these killer whales. This is actually a toilet block along the beach, and I chose it because her tattoos kind of reminded me of the killer whales. She's got quite a bit of fill in her skin work. Um, and when we got there, being able to have that orca sort of looking up to her with that crown just was better than I ever imagined. And it was really windy. I have used some artificial light here, but because of the wind, it was a really small softbox, and that was just enough just to put a pop of light on her face. But I dragged the shutter so that the shutter's quite a slow shutter, so I could capture that movement in her hair.
Can you just explain to us when you're talking about dragging the shutter what that process is?
Um, not sure if I know 100% myself. I guess dragging the shutter is a combination, probably more likely of keeping the shutter open for a long period of time and also potentially moving the camera while you do it. But in this case, the camera was held still, and just having that shutter open for long enough to capture movement and what she's doing.
So when you're talking about having it open for a longer period of time, how long are you kind
Uh,
of talking?
it might have been a quarter of a second.
Okay.
So obviously you need a tripod.
Yeah. Do you know what this one scored?
Silver distinction.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to this photo here, which I think might have also been in the portrait category.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like on your screens, but it's showing up very dark on mine. It's supposed to be a very dark image, and there's a lot of, I guess,
Mel,
a lot of rules
that's the
broken
thing I
here.
was telling you about.
Um, yeah, I was inspired by Rembrandt's Man in the Golden Helmet. And light should always be traditionally on the face of your subject. And I liked the idea of this is a where is it? It's just here. So I've just got it in my hands now. This is a British issue police riot helmet that I managed to find online, and I painted it gold. None of the judges, I don't think, picked up that it was sort of saluting to Rembrandt, but basically the light is lighting up the helmet rather than his face. So that puts all the attention and the glory on, I guess, the state. It's police uniform, whereas there's almost an ashamed or saddened face in the darkness underneath that helmet. And if you look closely, he's been egged. So I just wanted to create. I find myself these days always wanting to create more simple work. And I do sometimes, but then I get sidetracked and do those massive composites that you see in the illustrative category as well. But I'll keep working on it. But yeah, this was just me trying to get through breaking a whole lot of conventional rules, and but trying to put through a simple message of emotion and story through just really minimal sort of work.
So how did you light this one? Is it in studio?
Yeah. So this one, I can't actually remember if it was a softbox or an umbrella. I mean, they're both pretty much doing the same thing, but what I can't tell you whether it was 1.2 or 1. Actually, no. This one, I believe, was actually a 60 centimeter softbox. So it was quite a small light. Now the issue you're going to get with a small light is, something like this, I want things to be quite soft, and a smaller modifier is going to give you a harder light. However, if you bring that light really close to your subject, then in perspective to your subject, the light becomes bigger. So you end up with that really soft look, even though you've used a small modifier. And again, when your light is really close to your subject, it falls off quickly. So if you've got a light that's way over the other side of a big room, the light across that subject will be a lot more even than what you see here. So you can see, because that light's brought so close, it's hit the helmet really hard, but then it fades off quite fast.
Thank you. How about we look at this photo, which I think was in portrait as well.
Yeah, this was in camera portrait. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no compositing done on this one. I think this got a gold distinction actually. So this is my partner Fleur's 90-year-old grandmother who came to visit from Holland, and didn't speak a lot of English at all actually. So I had Fleur there to translate. But those wings are made by a woman in the States called Kayla Douglas. She makes and sells them. They're not cheap, but I find them really amazing. And I was lucky enough to acquire a set. And normally when you see her wings, they're on young, beautiful girls and all the rest of it. And I thought, no, I want to do something else with these. And thinking, and you just get inspired by, I guess your initial thoughts of a concept, and to me, I thought, what could you show about an old angel? And she's not necessarily literally an angel, but I liked almost the analogy of that, if that makes sense, or the idea of it could be seen as conceptual as well. And I just played with the idea of sadness and loss. And she's holding an egg there that's broken. In the background, I've leaned up against the wall a framed painting of Madonna of the Rocks, which shows obviously Mary with a couple of children there. So it's just what, yeah, it's about loss, and it could be about family, and it's just I don't like to spoon feed the judges too much. I like them to kind of sit with it and try and work things out. But as I said earlier, I don't think it's important that they work it all out. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So this was photographed in a flood damaged house. I just took a chair in there one day, and yeah, it's had a color grade and a bit of darkening around the edge, and yeah, and that was lit with two in a similar way that the geisha was. So it's lit with two diffused umbrellas.
Okay.
One is a key light and one is a fill.
Okay. Should we? Oh, we've got a question. Did you ask her for her expression? What did
Yeah,
you ask her?
yeah, I did. I said, look sad. um, some do see a startled expression, however, and I guess that differs depending on who's looking at it, and maybe because we know her, we see it as more of a soft sort of saddened expression. But yeah, there was some conflict over what she was saying with her face.
I love her expression. What did the judge, do you remember what the judges said when they were judging this? Because if it went to gold distinction, there must have been a lot of discussion.
The problem is I'm not always in the room, but
Yeah. You haven't gone back and watched it.
um, no, I haven't. I thought I did actually watch this one though. Crikey, they were all just pulling their own stories from there. I didn't get. No one really mentioned sadness, maybe because it might have been too obvious, but there was definitely elements in there for people to connect together, and it just kind of went round in circles and went up and up and up, which was, yeah, it's nice.
It's awesome.
I guess if you can move, if you can move the viewer, then you're on your way, aren't you?
Hmm. Okay, shall we have another look at another portrait image?
This is my 2-year-old daughter again, and her older sister's hanging up the washing there. You could see her silhouetted on the sheet, and it was a little bit set up, but only because I saw it happen and I went, wow, that's really cool. I mean, those bunnies are constantly getting grubby, and they have their little wash cycle every now and then. And yeah, I really liked the repetition of shapes that kind of went down the clothesline with the shapes of those rabbits, and then um, the silhouette sort of replicated those shapes as that sheet was being hung out. So we went back and grabbed that as a shot,
Super
and
cute.
yeah, Alouette with her cracker, yeah.
Is this natural light?
No, I've given it a bang of flash from the right.
So you take your light outside with you and
Yeah,
set it up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I saw the shot and I was like, there's something in this, so I've gone back and crafted it. But yeah,
You're lucky she waited there for you. uh,
she was put back.
I'll put back. Okay, and then the last photo that we've got to look at might be your highest scoring, I think, this year,
Yeah, I
uh,
think it was.
in the illustrative category, which is about storytelling and
Mm, mm.
concept. Um, so this one's maybe got a wee bit more to unpack than the others. Can
Yeah.
you tell us about this one?
There's it took a while. It's but it was birthed from, I guess, the concern and frustration about what's happening with AI at the moment. Um, and there's a lot of photography that's not lost and probably not going to be lost, but there are certain things like images like this that the AI can already do pretty well. So I'm just kind of, it was me illustrating a concept around that. It's basically an AI constructing themselves or others out of parts. So all around here is electronics and circuit boards. But if you look really closely, it gets a lot more sinister than that. And you'll find a human, a fleshed human spine and a head. And there's a couple of eyeballs on the table, and she's messing around with a couple of hearts, and there's, one's in liquid and there's wires coming out of them. And it's just that, people talk about how that's what we don't want to happen, is for an AI to become too sentient. Um, and I guess that's all about heart. And, when you're in dangerous ground when the AI can feel things. And it's her trying to work that out. This was my eldest daughter that I used for this, but I'll just show a prop up here on the camera. So I found this little model online, and it just came as white plastic, and you had to put the fiddly thing together. And then I painted it gold and the fleshy parts red, all the parts I wanted to look a bit like flesh. And I since changed my mind when I was grading it and turned the gold parts into kind of a silvery white. And then from there, just added, my daughter's body parts in there. I've added skeletal areas. There's ribs, extra pieces of flesh, little LED lights, circuit boards, wires. So her on her own was quite the task. And then I advertised just on social media requesting old broken electronics, and I got quite a bit. What I didn't realize is the cost to you when you want to dump it at the landfill. So, I think the Hastings landfill charges $60 for a printer. So yeah, we had to slyly get around that one and slowly just use the household rubbish bin. And then there's there's bits and pieces, there's treasures all through there. I've got there's other models that I've got here. This is broken, but that worked perfectly. This figure here, which is a bit robotic, and just used parts. Toys often come in handy. Behind her, you can't tell what it is, but that's like a robotic bulldog that's been turned on its side. And a few tools in there. And there's a second character in there. There's a little lamp light with arms and legs that's on camera right of her, that's looking up towards that screen, that computer screen, which is all sort of dots and dashes and zeros. And but there's a few lines in there giving the clues into the idea behind a heart. So yeah.
So, how did you like this one?
So all those pieces were lit in groups or individually, with a 1.2 softbox, and so was she. So the trick is, when you're doing a composite like this, is you've got to have everything looking believable. So you've got to light it all as much as you can, the same as you can, the same. So all those components need to fit under the same lighting setup for them to look okay when you place them together. And if they don't look right, then you've got a whole lot of dodging and burning and playing with curves and just to try and get things to look sensible and fit. But yeah.
So, do you just spend like hours on these photos? Are we talking hours and hours putting this together?
This one took a really long time. Yeah. I've never added up the hours, but I mean, I enjoy it. It's kind of something fun to do. I mean, the most, a good chunk of my day-to-day work's pretty mundane. I've just completed photographing 60 chrome mufflers. So, um, which was a challenge, but I really enjoy it. But I mean, in the same scenario, the man in the golden helmet, he was with me for about 3 minutes.
Hmm.
And the editing was done probably an hour later when I finally sat down to the computer, and it probably took 10-15 minutes. So they don't always, but I feel like I need to be doing more of those quicker shots because time's getting more important to me.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, I like to try and do creative stuff, and I'm not very good at it, but for me, it never comes out how I kind of picture it. Does it for you? Is it the idea that you have in your head is what the finished product is, or is it always quite different from what you set out from?
Uh,
Does it evolve?
Sometimes they come out just as I imagined them, like the angel, um, and sometimes they come out a bit different, and sometimes you change the concept halfway through. The man in the helmet was 100% perfect to what I was trying to achieve. The angel, she was probably 95. And yeah, but sometimes you have a disaster. I had a disaster this year, an image that I just gave up on. Um, and I can think of two others through the years where I've just failed miserably. Which you always feel bad when you've got makeup and hair and whatnot, whatnot helping you out, and in the end, it just doesn't work. But yeah, yeah.
Lawrence just asked, when do you start working on your award pieces? Do you continue throughout the year or start month or weeks before planning to enter?
I don't do it throughout the year. Um, it probably gets to about, it's when it's starting to get quite cold at night. I know that. So we're probably talking about March, April, May. I might start thinking about it. Um, I quite often in the evenings go for walks, and I find that if I just put my headphones on, I listen to, say, some Hans Zimmer or something, and I go for a walk, because all those pieces are storytelling pieces of music, and quite often you'll find your brain starts to fit narratives to it, or it just allows you to be with yourself and think. I've tried doing this during the day, but I never get any ideas during the day. And I firmly believe that's because you're being visually stimulated by what's going on around you and noise. There's people you might see, things going on as you walk down the street. But when you do it at dark, you just aren't distracted. So I guess it's almost like a form of meditation. But for ideas, I think that's what you have to do in some way or another, um, whatever might work for you. But you literally have to turn off the noise for creativity to sort of allow its way in. Yeah.
I've got questions coming in on my own personal hotline here.
Oh, have you?
Why do you keep entering and what does it mean to you to win? Like you're a four-time Grand Master, but you still keep entering. Are you like really competitive or are you getting other benefit from it that's making you want to keep entering?
Um, there are reasons. I'm not competitive. I don't feel like I'm that competitive. I'm competitive with myself. But I think the challenge is for me. I get excited about it. And it's like, oh, here we go. Let's give it another go. And there has been many years where I've just thought, no, just give it a rest, Richard. But I can't help myself. Um, but also, being completely transparent about it, it's given me some notoriety of such. Um, I've got an online platform where I teach people how to be creative and shoot creatively. So being able to keep this up gives me credibility of sorts. So um, probably scared of being a has-been or burning out, maybe. um, I'm just I'm just I'm just you know, walk the talk and practice what you preach, I guess is a big part of it. If I'm teaching, um, then yeah, I'm not, yeah, I don't have to retire doing this stuff.
Your light gone out. If you've got any questions for Richard, feel free to post them in the chat or we've covered off the photos tonight, so you can unmute yourself and ask whatever you prefer. Katia said, thanks for your honesty, Richard. And Lauren said, it's beautiful advice. Thank you. Rebecca said, thanks, Richard. I've just got to try and move the chat. Which photographers are inspiring you at the moment?
I really love Annie Leibowitz's work. And I feel today she gets given a bit of flack. But there's a clear there's something about her work that I've always strived for. And she does very raw up against an oliphant backdrop sort of work right through to the, I don't know if she's doing the composites, but really creative stuff as well. And I've got all her books. So yeah, I really enjoy her work. Back in the day when I was learning, Joel Grimes was a big inspiration to me. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's everyone's work around me, especially at these awards. That's definitely a driver. You get inspired left, right, and center.
Has anyone else got some questions they want to ask? I know you've talked before, Richard, about a lot of your work sort of comes back to historical moments. Do you read a lot about history and you're still going along that journey like you used to?
I don't know if I read so much, but I probably retain the information because I'm interested in it. But I find not just history. I mean, looking all through history of what's happened in the world, but also myths, legends, and religions, and they all hold, whether it's made up or not. I'm not going to go down that road, but they all hold a lot of inspiration. There's a lot of strange, weird, and outside of the box events that have happened through those times or stories, and so quite often they can lead to a bit of inspiration, and even not necessarily in a repeating the story into an image sort of point of view, but if you take analogies from those stories or inspiration from those stories and what happens, then yeah, I think there's a bit of value in that.
So if we've got some people here who are sort of starting on their journey as a photographer or haven't entered the awards before, and are quite keen on this creative type of photography, have you got any specific advice that you'd want to share with people about how to get into it and make it work?
This is when I say buy my book, isn't it? I have actually just written a book, but it needs to go through a bit of editing yet. And it's all on how to think creatively and create original ideas. I do have a couple of online courses. There's 3 of them there. The Creative Portrait Series, the Painterly Portrait Series, and the Imagination Series are all on the Portrait Masters. The Creative Series looks at pretty basic compositing and a bit of lighting. The Painterly Portraits looks at how I achieve that kind of painterly, moody look with my lights and editing. And the Imagination Series is all about idea generation.
Perfect. Craig has just posted the link to the series in the chat. So if you're looking for it, go and grab it now.
Thanks, Craig.
Faru said, such an amazing talk. Thank you for sharing your amazing works. We are also lucky to have such a creative and humble artist in our industry to inspire us all.
Thank you.
Has anyone else got questions before we sign off for tonight? Feel free to unmute yourself too. Right, I think that might be it. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you so much, Richard, for sharing your work with us and
Thanks
the
for having me.
stories behind them.
And being
Um,
inspiring.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. We do have another Zoom coming up on the 26th of September, which is with Craig Turner Bullock. And Craig is going to run a masterclass on publishing your passion. So that one's going to be super, super cool. That is an event that you need to register for. So if you go onto the NZIPP Facebook page, you'll see that under the events section. Make sure you register for it and come and see us in a couple of weeks. 26th of September, 7:30 p.m. So thanks everyone for joining us. It was really, really great to have you here and to have another Zoom session. It's been a while. Hope you have a great rest of your night, and we'll catch you guys later. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
See ya.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.